Please.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you.
So we have a tradition at Ebertfest. We give a casting of, we give the golden thumb. They've changed a little bit in the years, but this is a present that Roger wanted to give to all of our filmmakers as his esteem for you. So we continue the tradition. Will you please accept the golden thumb?
Nothing would make me happier. Thank you so much. That's so great.
But we also know how heavy it is, so
It's very heavy, guys.
we hold it for you, but will you hold it for just a second?
Sure.
Because I want to call out someone that the audience knows. Matt Zollerseis, he's going to be the moderator. Matt from RogerEbert.com. Do one picture here. Thank you. Okay, have a seat. And you may have a seat.
All right.
And I will take this.
Oh, thank you.
And then
I get it back, right?
I will
Okay, good.
make sure I'll guard it with my life. And someone else who was just introduced this morning, but whom you've known for many, many years. And I just have to say once again, all of these years, all of the movies that Michael Barker brought here, and he brought another winner. Thank you, Michael Barker.
Absolutely.
You should be in the middle.
I'll go in the middle.
You should get in the middle. Here, do you want to hold the thumb?
I do want to hold the thumb.
Thank you. You may have a seat.
All right.
Someone please take the thumb. I'm going to let Matt ask you the first question.
Oh my goodness, so much pressure. Well, you know, as I watched this film the first time before it was theatrically released, probably like a lot of people in the audience, I was thinking, oh, this all looks very familiar. And I was wondering, to what extent did you feel that when you were adapting the source material into the movie? And did anything that was happening contemporaneously affect what you wrote?
No, it's a great question, by the way. It's what's sort of amazing is I first came to this 14 years ago, and so we lived in a very different world, but it was still extremely familiar, and it still felt very, very timely then. And as I was working on the script, there were things that were happening in the world then that were sort of reflective. I really tried to just focus on this period as much as possible, and not because I love films that are timeless and feel like, I think there's a little bit of a magic trick to it, in the sense of if you can make a movie that feels timeless, it actually will be in conversation with the times you're seeing it on its own. So I will say, though, as we got closer to shooting it, there were certain things where you know, I remember Russell Crowe sort of saying, you know, this is really this. And I said, Russell, I wrote that line 10 years ago, you know? And so, you know, I think it was a story that was important for me to tell, and because it's still relevant today, and I think it unfortunately will be relevant in the future, too.
I want to ask a question about the scene where he goes to the Vatican and he's meeting with the Pope.
Yeah.
This audience reacted quite
Yes.
Quite a lot to that.
Yes.
Tell us about
Well, I mean,
that.
again, it's sort of, when we were shooting this film 2.5 years ago, there was not the situation that's going on with the Pope right now. So it's amazing how, somebody once said, history doesn't necessarily repeat, but it does rhyme. And so it was sort of amazing to hear that reaction today to a moment that didn't have that reaction when we were showing it a year ago.
This idea, well, how timely is this movie? I mean, when you hear all the speeches about rule of law, you're just kind of hanging on every word. And as you answered the question, you didn't foresee it. But when you started this movie, when you started writing the screenplay, did you have in mind who you wanted to play the characters? And also, the crew is so perfect. I wonder if you had in mind the people that were your DP and your composer and your editor, because this is like, watching it again, I've seen it many, many times, but watching it again, it's almost like you had to have those people in mind to make the movie you resulted with.
I wish I could say I looked perfectly into the future and picked. I had ideas. I actually started writing this before I directed the movie we did together 12 years ago, Truth. And I knew that I wanted somebody for Goering who was a movie star. I knew it had to be somebody who had that kind of charisma to kind of pull you in and seduce you, because Goering was notoriously a gregarious person. People said he was funny and charming and all of the things you don't think of when you think of a Nazi. That's what Hermann Goering was. And part of the movie is, especially the first half of the movie, is watching Kelly get seduced by that. And I knew that, if you're coming in and sitting down and watching a movie called Nuremberg, the first 10 minutes you're going to have your arms folded with whoever's playing Goering, And I wanted somebody who could sort of slowly disarm you and slowly kind of pull you in. And so after I'd written the first draft and we were sort of going around, we went to many studios and all of them passed, to sort of do it. And so we realized we had to do it independently. And the way we got that ball started was Russell Crowe. And I loved the idea that we have had a 30-year relationship as an audience with Russell, as someone we've rooted for and someone we've cheered for, and I wanted to be able to weaponize that against you.
Yeah. Well, you definitely did that. And, but it also reminds me that, two things that are kind of interrelated, which is a theory that a political scientist friend of mine has, that in nearly every presidential election of the last century, the most exciting candidate always wins, regardless of what they stand for politically. It's like, you don't want to vote for the boring person, you want to vote for the exciting person. And I thought of that while watching this film. And the other thing I was thinking about was, there's been a lot of talk about the platforming of fascism, how it's kind of come out from under the rock that it used to be in after World War II now, and arguably an entire social media platform, Twitter, is kind of a feeding ground for it. And the question of, do we want to engage these folks in debate and show their hypocrisy and mendacity and the error of their ways, or does it simply just give them exposure?
Right.
And they actually deal with that question in the film. And I don't want to be too much of a brain teaser here, but did you have any concerns as the writer and director of this film that you might fall prey to that? That no matter how clear you made the atrocities and the horrible, evil acts of the Nazis, there's still going to be people who watch this movie go, cool.
Right. It's interesting. We talked about it a lot, actually. We did. Sort of what is the responsibility for it. I'm, a little bit of a... If you tell me I shouldn't make a movie about something, that's probably the quickest way to get me to want to make a movie about something. Because I believe sort of, ignoring problems and ignoring subjects don't necessarily help people not understand them, And I think generationally, I look at I have 3 boys, the oldest is 16, they're conception of what this time period was, who the Nazis were, and what this was, is completely different than the one that I had growing up. And so one of the things we did with this film is I wanted to make sure that I didn't take for granted a general knowledge of the audience. This audience and people my age, I think, have a general knowledge of what happened. And I remember I think Michael, you and I at one point had a conversation about, do we need to say and explain what the final solution is? And I always said yes, because there are going to be people in the audience who do not understand what that phrase means today. And so if we can explain what that is and what that was, and also engage them emotionally with the Howie Triest character, who was a real person. It's so funny, people will go, oh, and that guy you made up who is the translator. I was like, I didn't make him up. He was incredible. But it was important for me, for younger audiences, to be able to come to this not having that much information about it and be able to engage with it as a story.
My minor in graduate school was philosophy, and so I always think about my questions like meditations on evil, man in the state of nature, what would you do if you were at that time? And I have to admit that for years and years, I always felt that growing up in the United States of America, I did not understand this period that you're writing about so much, because I always thought that we would just do the right thing.
Yeah.
And now, in the last year or two, I have been afraid. Really afraid. I spoke out about something at the Cannes Film Festival last year, and people told me they might take my passport at the airport. And I mean, really, and it didn't happen. I was able to get out, and no one arrested me. But what are your thoughts on, like, the meditations of evil, or what we are as people?
I can answer this. I can answer this in 2 sentences. No, it's a great question. I think it's a constant re-examination. I think we have, as humans, the capacity for great things and great evil within all of us. And I think, in terms of this film, one of the ideas that I wanted to dig down into is the othering of evil. Is we'll recognize it with scary uniforms, all of that. There was a piece in Leo Woodall's scene at the train station that we ended up cutting for time, but was a true part of the story, where he talked about going back to Germany and people into his hometown in Munich, and people coming out of their houses and seeing him in the uniform and saying how excited they were that he was back and how wonderful it was. And he said, Hitler falls and suddenly there are no Nazis in Germany anymore. So it's an interesting thing. I think that it's one of the reasons I wanted to tell the story, and is to talk about that, because I think yes, we look outward, but we don't always look inward.
I wanted to go back to Goring and Russell Crowe for just a second. There's always a problem that storytellers face when they've got a character like him in a movie, which is, if you're being honest, there will be times when, purposefully or accidentally, he's going to say something that makes you go, yeah. Mm-hmm. And that happens a lot in this movie, and particularly this, I wrote this down, you vaporize 150,000 people at the touch of a button, and you presume to stand in judgment of me for war crimes. Mm-hmm. Well, he's not wrong exactly. Mm-hmm. And when you put sense in the mouth of the devil, which is kind of what's being done here, there's a lot of risks associated with that. And is there such a thing as having a character like that who's too seductive, too charming?
I mean, I think there's absolutely the danger of it, but I also feel the trade-off for me is, first of all, the idea that these men were able to come to power, but also weren't smart, doesn't compute for me. It doesn't make sense. That they weren't able to. What was important for me was not to be apologist in any way.
Right.
And showing the films was incredibly important to showing the concentration camps films. That's the moment the movie turns. That said, I think your villain is only as good as how intelligent they are too. And to me, someone like that who can make points, who loves his wife the same way we love our spouses, who loves his kids the same, that to me is scarier than Darth Vader, right? Darth Vader is very tall and then wears all black and has a big cloak and, but Hermann Goering terrifies me for precisely those reasons.
Is there an alternate universe in which you told this story differently? Or was it conceived differently at some point? And you changed it?
No, it from the first draft, it was always this story. The way it started was Jack L. High's book proposal and then book, which is very much just Goering and Kelly in the cell. And I thought when I started researching it, I thought I was going to make a small movie, sort of almost a Silence of the Lambs, of these two people facing off each other. And then I started doing research, and I started reading about Jackson, who wasn't in Jack's book at all. And I had this moment where I said, oh, I thought my movie was over here in the cell, but I think it's also over here in the courtroom. And then I read about Howie Triest, and I said, oh no, it's also here, with the translator, and it grew, which as someone who adapts, work is terrifying. It's exactly the opposite of what you want to have happen. You want to be compressing and shrinking, and this kept growing. So it took me, I think, about 2 years all told to write the first draft of it. But once I had the first draft of it, this was always the shape of it.
It's mysterious, I know, but I have to ask, when you've got, 22, 23, 24 Nazi bigwigs,
right?
And I don't even know how many people in the Allied legal team, who gets cut? How do you make those decisions?
It was where does the story take you? And I knew once I had Jackson, I sort of went, okay, it's about these three men, and everything that doesn't involve these three men has to fall out of it in some form or fashion. So the Rudolf Hess story is fascinating, but we only deal with Rudolf Hess when he's being dealt with by Kelly or by Goering. There's so many other stories that are happening concurrently to what's in the movie. And the good news, bad news for me is this trial was so designed to be documented that there is so much material. I've worked on true stories where it's really hard to find material, and this was the opposite. This was sort of drinking from a fire hose. You can go watch the entire trial on YouTube. It took a year, and you can go watch the cross-examinations after you leave here.
I feel safe in asking this question because all four of us on stage are of the age to know what this is, but could we talk about judgment at Nuremberg?
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, talk about being in conversation with the past. Like, both of these movies are in conversation with 1946, and this movie is in conversation with the Stanley Kramer movie, which, have you all seen this? Did you see Judgment at Nuremberg? Stanley Kramer kind of got a bad rap for being this polemic kind of classes and sessions sort of teacher, but a lot of his movies have lasted.
Yeah.
And
No, they have. The thing about Stanley Kramer was a controversial guy because intellectuals didn't like him, and he didn't believe in auteurism, and he was a certain kind of character. But what I think is so important about this film is it's about, we have to continue to educate and speak to younger generations about what's in the movie. And I remember when we first screened the movie for the younger employees at Sony, and their comment after was, oh, wow, we were so shocked by the archival footage. Maybe you need to warn people about that before you see the movie. These were young people. They were thinking about what was best for the movie. And I said to them, when I was 7 years old or 8, my mother made me watch Judgment at Nuremberg, and they used the same footage, pretty much the same footage used now in 2026. That film was in 1961. I saw it a couple years later on television. But the point is at a certain point, you can't sugarcoat it. And so what I found very gratifying was like the MPAA gave the movie a PG-13 because I think they knew that archival footage was used in Judgment at Nuremberg in 1961. Right. And we have to give Stanley Kramer kind of credit for not being afraid of that. The other thing so remarkable in this movie is to see stories we haven't seen before. Like Jamie said, you know, the young boy character, a lot of people think it's a fictional construct. It's not. He was a real guy.
You're talking about what's his name,
diary.
Triest?
Howie Triest, Leo Woodall.
He has a memoir, tells the whole thing. And the other thing is I've heard people say to me, wow, they made up the British thing with Richard E. Grant. Now, Richard E. Grant is fantastic in the movie. Are we agreed in about 2 scenes? Oh, my God. I mean, what he does is 2 or 3 scenes. But everything in that courtroom where the British guy comes in is not only true to life, but Michael Shannon told me Robert Jackson was this incredible legal mind. He knew how to draft, but he was not a big hit in the courtroom. He wasn't that great, and he made these errors. And the other thing I found out about Robert Jackson didn't have a law degree, didn't have a college degree. In those days, you could just show by your ability, and he almost became the Supreme Court Justice.
Yeah.
But this stuff is so important because I remember 10 years ago I saw a poll where elementary school students thought we had fought the Russians during World War II, and people have to know what really happened in history. You know, we can't let it be revisionist.
Okay. The other reason I really wanted to have this movie at Ebertfest is my master's, I didn't do a thesis, just a paper, was on the psychosexual behavior of Adolf Hitler. And so I wanted to know which enablers he had, how he was able to get away with so much, what was the psychology in Germany at the time, and when you were researching this movie, how far did you get into, I know it was based on a book, but in your research, how far did you get into the psychology of it?
I got into the psychology a lot, and one of the big things we talk about in the film was nationalism, was national pride, was such an important part of that rise to power, and that giving people some version of hope that they could rise up, also giving them something to hate and to blame was so much a part of it. Is that kind of othering? It's not your fault that your life isn't going well. It's their fault, and we're going to get them for you.
And also casting. You cast Rami Malek and Russell Crowe. What was that whole casting part like?
It was really wonderful. John Papsadera cast the picture, who's an incredible casting director. And once I knew we needed Goering first, because that sort of would explain to the other actors what movie this was. And then the next piece of it was Rami. And he was going to do it, and then he wasn't going to do it because of scheduling and because of strikes. And so there were other actors that I went to. And it was interesting because a lot of them didn't want to play it. Like there was a level of fear to playing this part, and Rami talked to me about it too, which is I don't want to look like someone who's apologizing for the monster that this man is. So we had a lot of conversations about it, but once his schedule cleared and he committed to it, he was just absolutely fearless about it. And then Michael Shannon was just one of the. I mean, Michael, one of the greatest actors. He's an actor's actor. He's there's the phrase a comedian's comedian, which is the comedian all other comedians are in awe of and terrified. That's Michael Shannon. So people would come in and go, I can't believe I'm doing a scene with Michael Shannon today. I mean, and by the way, and Russell had worked with Michael before, and they really loved each other. And so they were excited to work together. And then, honestly, casting a movie is like throwing a dinner party sometimes. Well, who's coming to the party? Russell's coming to the party? Rami's coming to the party? Michael's coming to the party? I'd like to go to this party.
A really basic production question. Where was this movie shot?
It was in Budapest, Hungary, by the way, who are having a very good week.
Oh, yes.
in Budapest. We were there. We were there the whole time. Yeah.
And you know what? I'm getting the signal. We have to let the audience ask questions. We have a few minutes for the audience. Please, does someone have microphones?
I have
That's
one on the
also a
house right
tradition
here.
at Ebertfest.
No, that's great.
Right here in the front.
Sorry. Hello, thank
Hi.
you so much for this movie. And I just wanted to share that it actually has a very interesting local connection. There was a gentleman who lived here with his wife, and Rose had a family, and he and his wife escaped in 1939, 1940. They were Jewish. They escaped from Germany, came here. In 1941, he signed up to serve in the military, and then ended up going to Nuremberg and serving as an interrogator.
Oh wow.
And Fred Isterman. And so watching this movie and the story with the I mean, I just felt, I was like, oh my, the similarities. So I love the film. It's so timely. I hope everyone watches it and shares it, but I just wanted to thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you for sharing that with me. It's amazing, as we've shown it around too, how many different people have connections like that too. You know, it's really incredible. Thank you.
The next one here in the middle.
Okay.
Hi, I'd like to ask about the interaction between the actor Russell Crowe and the director. And in particular, there was just so many amazing facial expressions he had at every point in the movie. And the question I have, like for example, when he's getting ready to turn around and face the jury, and he had that little sly smile just before he turned around. I'm wondering, at any point, do you direct him on, could you change the facial expression a little bit to give a little bit more nuance, or do you just let him decide and have the flow throughout the production?
It's a great question, by the way. Thank you. The Russell's very technical. And you know, in a way, and all of them are different, which is a wonderful thing as a director, to have different artists kind of paint different ways. Russell and I would have a lot of conversations beforehand, not about performance facial expressions, but just about story and script, and you know, where he thinks Goering is in this moment or that moment. But he's so technical, he can do that. Like he would when we were doing the cross-examination with Michael, he would come back and go, "Did you see the little quiver I gave you right here?" And it's like, and he could quiver his eye on command. I don't know how, with the smile. But what I generally would do is we would have the broader conversations, and then I let him do the first couple however he wanted to try it. Because one of the things when you cast a movie is I'm not casting them to say it how I hear it in my head. If all they do is say it how they hear it in my head, then I failed on the day. I'm casting them for their brains and their instincts and how they're going to dance with each other. And so part of it is, at the beginning when I start doing takes, not getting in the way of that, because they may find something that I didn't think of. With that moment, he had done it once or twice, and I just went and I said, "Do me a favor, can you give me just a little smile before you turn around, and I'm going to light it low so it doesn't," and he was like, "Love it." And then that, so I could give him moments like that, and his filmic brain wouldn't go, "How dare you," kind of, he would go, "I see how that's going to land." But that part of that was a trust that you kind of build over the course of pre-production and production. You know, if you go in on day one and say, "Hey, can you raise your eyebrow on that second line there?" I don't think that would have gone well for me.
And you know, a lot of decisions like that also happen in the editing room. You know, the scene I adore every time, and I have tears every time is in the train station with Leo Woodall. And that scene in the train station was a lot longer.
It was longer,
and
yeah.
he just delivered so much that Jamie was like, "Okay, we got to cut this
We gotta
to
just pull
preserve
it,
it
shave
for
it."
its power." And I think it's one of the most powerful scenes in the movie.
Thank you so much. And the amazing thing is that the take we use when he actually cries, right after he did that take, he goes, "I over-egged it." And I said, "What do you mean?" He goes, "It was too much, I'm going to pull back." I was like, "That was pretty good, man."
He's British, by the way. You wouldn't know it, but he doesn't have an ounce of American in him.
Yeah, British, doing an American accent, speaking German, which he doesn't speak.
Unbelievable.
He's great. We have a question in the balcony.
In the balcony center, right.
Balcony center.
Thinking about the historical context and where you filmed it, what kind of responses were the crew in Hungary having to this subject matter?
It was really fascinating because they certainly have their own relationship with the Nazis and then also with communism. And so there was a lot of, everybody was on board to make this version of the movie, which was really important to me. And especially on the day that we showed the films in the courtroom, we really did that. And we really brought in a projector, and really we didn't put up a green screen or anything like that. We showed those images because it was important for all of us to actually have that experience in the room. But, you know, we had 300, you know, background actors there. Many of whom didn't, you know, speak English, and they knew what it was going to be, and we made sure on the call, you know, we didn't want anyone to be surprised by it. But we didn't show it to them before we rolled cameras, and I didn't show it to actually any of the actors before I rolled cameras. And we went in on the day, and I went out and I sort of explained why we were doing this for real, and what they were going to see, and how emotional it was. But we wanted to do it to honor what the victims had gone through. And then we had a moment of silence, and then we rolled the film, and they were amazing. I mean, it was not a, I've worked on a lot of films, and there are always issues with background actors or certain something. They were so incredible and so committed to this movie, and the crews too. A lot of our crew was local, and I was very lucky how dedicated they were to wanting to make this movie.
How
And you
many
say the
takes?
movie is opening in Germany when?
I think it's May, actually. It's
Coming up.
yeah.
How many takes did you do of that scene, and how many cameras did you have on it? Like, I'm trying to imagine the scale of something like that.
Oh, with the cross-examination or the?
No, where they watch the footage.
Where they watched the footage. We did that. We had 4 cameras on it. We did, and the first take I lined up in front of our 4 principals, and then we kind of chop it down. But we ran the whole, what you see in that, we ran all the way through every time. So that was a full day. And that's all we shot that day. And we wrapped early, but it was, I mean, we had to have done it 14 times. I mean, there's so many characters to cover too. It's a really, it's a lot of, Darius, our DPs say, we don't actually have to cut to extras because we have so many actual actors we can cut to.
I'm just going to keep him here
Jamie,
forever.
I think we have to have the audience thank you again so much for bringing this incredible movie
Thank
to
you so much.
Ebertfest. We
Thank
just
you.
loved it. Amazing. Amazing.
Thank you.
Oh, great. Yes.
Reading a little bit about.
Oh, we can leave them.
We can leave these.